Civil War Commentary Part 2. Last time, we were at Fort Sumter, the outpost. We lost one man in an accident after the battle. It ended when the Union Army abandoned Fort Sumter. And we're now at the Second Battle of Bull Run. First of all, it's hard to imagine now. The Americans didn't have much of a strong army at that time. So, the first thing they did was to start recruiting soldiers for each other. On April 15, 1861, President Abraham Lincoln announced his intention to suppress a powerful clique that the normal judicial process could not contain. In the name of curbing powerful cliques, in 3 months, he recruited 75,000 volunteers. With the initial enthusiasm for the war, this was a quick turnaround. But there were only about 200 people from the War Ministry who were willing to accept them. So few. That includes the security guards and document delivery people. That's not even close to a manpower shortage. Furthermore, the Secretary of War at that time, Simon Cameron, helped Lincoln win the presidential election. He collided with his favorite merchant to bring inferior equipment into the army. The soldiers' shoes were broken and their hats were torn. There's been some real damage. In addition, the leader of the standing army that was present at the beginning of the war was Lieutenant General Winfield Scott. The few stationary army troops present at the start of the war were preserved by him and were able to assist in training. How is that possible? Lieutenant General Scott has lumped together with a valuable veteran force. He wanted to use them as a credible stage in the war. But today, the veterans are all there. It would have been better to make him the leader of the recruits. The training of the 75,000 recruits was slow. I wanted to make sure I had a solid working force. I understand why you wanted to do that, but it backfired. Now let's look at the South. This one had no standing army to begin with. They started from scratch because the country was just founded. And by the way, Lincoln's call for troops on April 15 was taken as a declaration of war, and this side started recruiting volunteers. But they were not ready to receive soldiers as the North. In 1861 alone, the first year of the war, President Davis turned away a total of 200,000 volunteers. What? Why? Well, the more people they have, the more they eat. There's more food, more weapons, more uniforms. They don't have enough guns or uniforms. What a mess. In July 1861, President Lincoln told Major General Irvin McDowell, "I want you to attack the Confederacy," and the target was Richmond. The distance between Washington, the capital of the North, and Richmond, which is the capital of the South, is only 160 kilometers. That's why the newspapers at that time were chanting, "Hurry up and attack." Well, you know how the press is. But President Lincoln knew it would be a short war. If he hadn't, he wouldn't have called for a 3-month battle. As it turned out, the war took 4 years. Lincoln said, "Our army is inexperienced, but the enemy is also inexperienced. But when you're the president, you've got to do it." Major McDowell reluctantly devised a plan. First, the battle would take place in Virginia, just a stone's throw away from the northern capital of Washington, D.C. Here's the detailed game plan. First, start with the Army's position in Washington with 37,000 soldiers led by Major General McDowell. Another 18,000 led by Major General Patterson at Harper's Ferry. And 22,000 led by Brigadier General Beauregard of the Confederate States Army. This is located at Manassas Station. Another 12,000, led by Major General Johnston, were in the Shenandoah Valley. Both armies could be reached by rail. Cooperation between the two armies was the key to victory. Then, amid all this, Major General McDowell planned that first, he would attack the right flank of Beauregard's army at Manassas Station. Then, he will attack the right side of the Praetorians at Manassas Station. The idea was to force them to choose between Manassas and Richmond, the capital of South County. If this happens, the Beauregard forces will have to protect Richmond. I thought the Beauregard army would abandon Manassas to protect Richmond. But, what? Public opinion would not allow such a leisurely maneuver. Hey, come on, back off. So the president said, "Lincoln, are you sleeping? We've got a serious problem with public opinion, so please attack straight away. We can't afford that. There's no time for that." So Major General McDowell was forced to head straight for Manassas. "I'm so screwed up." At which point, the Honorable Lieutenant General Scott said, "It's all right. I'll have Patterson's army at Harper's Ferry hold them off. This way, your army won't be attacked. March straight for Beauregard's army at Manassas to Major General McDowell. That should do it. But Major General Patterson, there's over 20,000 Johnstons in front of them. So they were retreating and needed reinforcements. As a result, they were unable to hold Johnston's army. Why? In the first place, they didn't know the exact size of the enemy force. It's not like they knew exactly how large the enemy force was. Misidentification by scouts. It's not just this, and everyone does it. There was no such thing as aerial photography. The problem with this is that Major General McDowell's army arrives in Centerville, Virginia, about 10 miles from Manassas Station. That's 10 kilometers from Manassas Station. We're getting close, aren't we? We're getting close, aren't we? At the fort of Blackburn, there was a minor scuffle and a standoff on the Bull Run River. The standoff had begun. Confederate Brigadier General Beauregard sent a telegram to Major General Johnston requesting his assistance. On July 20th, the sound of trains could be heard from Manassas Station all day. The Confederate rendezvous was no longer in doubt. Several Union generals have begun to advocate a retreat. It's all a bit messy. But Major General McDowell wasn't about to give up so easily. If we withdraw now, the soldiers we've recruited will expire. We won't be able to launch another offensive for 6 months. We'll have to gather more soldiers and train them again. The First Battle of Bull Run is about to begin. So, this is the situation near Manassas Station. Hey, it's not my fault that I can't draw. Well, you can do it if you try. The gap is too big. First, the main force is the Confederate Army of Brigadier General Beauregard Card, which clashed with Union forces on July 18. Brigadier General Longstreet's military is still defending the fort at Blackburn. The point here is on the left flank. Brigadier General Nathan G. Evans' force of 1,100 held the Stone Bridge, a relatively modest number. Major General McDowell's force of 37,000 will take the position at Centerville. And from there, they have to figure out how to attack the rebels. Let the campaign begin. Now, let's look at Major General McDowell's battle orders. First, Brigadier General Daniel Tyler's 3 brigades will move to the Stone Bridge. Then, Colonel Israel Bush Richardson's brigade, Blackburn and Mitchell's Ford. But these are only diversions. The main force is separate. The main body is 2 divisions attacking from the fort at Sadley Springs. Wow, that's a lot of north. Yes, first they changed direction to the north there, then turned around and attacked from the north. We'll attack from the north. We'll shoot them all at once. I hope it works. July 21st, 2:30 a.m. operation begins. Wow, it's a night. First, Brigadier General Tyler and Colonel Richardson begin moving in as a diversion, then David Hunter and Samuel Inselman. 2 divisions have begun their diversionary maneuvers. Let's see what happens. But the march is still not going well. The soldiers were not well trained to begin with. In addition, narrow roads and fallen trees blocked their way. Furthermore, the Union Army's directions were no shortcuts. They took a long way around. Why would they do that? They thought that the Confederates might notice if they took the shortcut. But that's part of it. By the time the 2 divisions reached the fort at Sadley Springs, it was 9:30 a.m. The battle began about 6:30 a.m. Brigadier General Tyler had begun his attack on Ishibashi. I mean, it's already started, but what have the rebels been doing all this time? Of course, the Confederates were planning an offensive. They're planning to attack the Union left flank from the fort at Blackburn. If this were to go through, they'd both be on the enemy's left side, in a counter-clockwise battle formation. But Brigadier General Beauregard's orders were vague and confusing. As a result, this was never done well. That's not going to work. After 10 o'clock a.m., the main Union Army finally made it through the dense jungle on the long way around. They were closing in on Matthews Hill. But shortly before this, Brigadier General Evans of the Confederate Army had taken up a position on the slopes of Matthews Hill with 900 men. They know the diversionary tactic. By the way, Brigadier General Tyler's army was right in front of Evans, okay? There's no offensive force there. They saw that it was a diversion. And from the direction of Manassas Station, Brigadier General Bernard Elliott by and Colonel Francis Stellans Bartow arrived from Manassas Station as reinforcements. They're putting up a stiff fight at Matthews Hill. Well, it looks like the Union Army is in trouble up there, which means they're going to get hit from the top of the hill. But Brigadier General Tyler's quick thinking saves the Union forces. He's got 2 divisions under his command crossing an empty ford near a stone bridge. They attack the Confederate right flank at Matthews Hill. And at the same time, the rest of the detoured troops arrived at Matthews Hill. This pushed the Confederates back to Henry House Hill. And behind THST, there was no place to regroup. The Confederates are now trapped on the edge. I think we've got it. From the top, Brigadier General Beauregard and his men will send their forces to Matthews Hill. This will be the final battle. We're getting closer to the map. While the rebels retreat to Henry House Hill, Brigadier General Thomas Jonathan Jackson, who had come from Manassas Station, was meticulously positioning his brigade under his command on Henry House Hill. There, they would be protected from Union artillery fire, and if he wanted to, he could quickly secure the peak in front of him and move in to attack. You've made good use of the terrain. Now, the Confederate forces retreat from Matthews Hill to Henry House Hill, but they're scattered. Jackson's brigade was the only unit still functioning. Then Brigadier General Barnard Bye, who had also come from Manassas, said, "Behold, Johnson was standing there like a stone wall." With this call, the Confederates managed to rally and form up. They were able to form a line of battle on Henry House Hill. That's when Stonewall Jackson got his nickname. Wow, that's cool, just like the cartoon. Then Generals Beauregard and Johnston's troops arrived. The Confederate ranks were further strengthened. Just after noon, the Union attack began. First, 5 brigades charge up the hill. An hour passes in a back-and-forth battle. That's about it. Finally, around 2 p.m., Major General McDowell makes his move. He ordered 2 companies of artillery to move up Henry House Hill and fire on the Confederate left flank. But it was difficult to defend, and the ground was uneven, so that they couldn't make an effective attack. They were unable to inflict any severe damage on the Confederates. Oh, no. Amid this battle, a blue-clad unit appeared from the bushes along the Manassas Road. Looking at the color of their uniforms, the artillery considered them allies and continued to target the Confederate left flank. But it was the 33rd Regiment, led by Confederate Colonel Charles Cummings. They fired a volley and charged. They took the battery and fired it at the Union troops who once owned it. Wait a minute, that's not fair, that's not fair, that's not fair. At this time, the Union Army was wearing blue and the Confederate Army was wearing gray. It's not like it's a trick question. I don't know, cosplay, perhaps. The Algerian troops were the most elite troops in the world at the time, and some of them were dressed in bright red, imitating the attire of the Zouave troops. A cosplay venue. That's why the rebels didn't do it on purpose. I can't help it. After that, the battery was taken and stolen 3 more times. You said it was hard to defend. But here's the problem, it's 4 p.m. by this time. The Union forces were at the peak of their fatigue. Oh, they've been on the move since 2 a.m., right? The extremely fatigued Union soldiers gradually begin to retreat. At first, it was an orderly retreat, but gradually, as the Confederate forces began to push back, Union soldiers fled across the stone bridge to the east, but many of them swam the river to escape without care. Furthermore, Confederate artillery fire accidentally struck a bridge over the Cabrang River 3 kilometers to the east. The wagons were overturned. This blocked the traffic on this road. The Union retreat is now a crushing rout. Looks like it's no use. Yes, the battle is over. The Battle of Bull Run ends in a resounding Confederate victory. Union casualties were about 3,000 and Confederate casualties 2,000. Now, here's what happened after that. There were many spectators following behind the Union forces, and their presence also added to the chaos of the retreat. Do they add to the chaos of the retreat? Yes. They must have come to see the Union win. One of them was a junior senator, Alfred Ely. He's been taken prisoner by the rebels. They've captured a senator, too? After this, the Confederates did not pursue it. Brigadier General Jackson insisted on attacking. Brigadier General Beauregard and Major General Johnston overruled him. That's partly because the Confederacy was as confused as the Union and partly because they were confused. It is also said that the aristocracy of the South kept them from pursuing if they had pursued to Washington at that time. Whatever the case may be, the Northern journalist and poet Walt Whitman, a Northern journalist and poet, wrote in his diary. At dawn on July 22, the defeated troops began pouring into Washington. Where are all the bragging and boasting and grandiloquence on the way out? It's sad. On the other hand, the Southern generals were well aware that a narrow margin won this battle. They realized that the Southern Army was not working correctly at that moment. So that's it. There are so many characters in this story that I'm afraid I'm going to lose control. That was before the Battle of Bull Run. Also, Brigadier General Evans was flagged by an Allied hand signal and he was aware that Union troops were coming from Sadley Springs to the north. Don't tell me this is an afterthought and then add to the main story. I've got nothing to say. Thank you for watching until the end.